de allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA, y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que los dieron el terreno, los dieron todo lo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer en las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está teniendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Este video fue producido con la ayuda financiera de la Unión Europea.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
Ahí estoy, con la cámara 3 en el podium. Exactamente. Ahí hay que moverlo, centrarlo, zoom in, zoom out. Ok.
Ahí se ve la bandera de la OEA cortada.
Sí, hay que moverlas. No sé por qué las movieron. Las cambiaron. Ahora las ajustamos según la cámara. ¿Capaz de hacer un poquito más de zoom? No, in. Que se vea más. Ok, creo que ahí estaremos bastante bien. Listo, ahora no tenemos la bandera de la OEA. Tenemos que moverla.
Ahí, Fer.
Vamos a ver entonces. A ver por qué. Acá. Ja. El problema de salud nos mata. A ver si movemos la cámara ahí un poco para que agarre las banderas. A ver. Sí, pero igual, ahí es que cuando se va justamente. Es para el otro lado. Ahí queda tapada la bandera de Guatemala atrás de... No, al revés. Si lo ponemos así.
Si lo pones así, pueden correr un poquito más la bandera de Guatemala hacia la de la OEA.
Sí. Okay. Ahí tapa la bandera de Guatemala, eso es lo que no me gusta. Ahí creo que podríamos
Sí, ahí se ve perfecto.
vivir con eso.
Muy pegadas.
Lo que sí veo que está, habría que centrar un poco más el podium. Centrarlo un poco más. Ahí, y bajarlo un poco más. Ahí. Yo creo que ahí estaremos bastante bien. A ver, Neto, ¿qué te parece? Supuestamente es como yo, un poquito más abajo, tal vez, me dijeron, pero no sé.
Yo pensaría que irá un poco más alto. No, pero es que tan centrada ahí ya no se ven las banderas.
¿Ahí? ¿Te parece? Pero ahí está demasiado fuera el podio.
Verificamos si así queda bien. Todavía veo muy poco.
¿Para dónde? El tema es que se van a parar todos ahí para salud.
Pero corremos un poquitín cada uno y ya estamos. Que la toma es más importante que eso.
parados saludando. Hacemos una cosa, como el podio se va a mover después que saluden y entren. ¿Esto es antes o después? Consulta, Alejandra. ¿Esto es antes o después? Después, no. Entonces para... Nos vamos a ir porque vamos a la bandera.
Sí, eso.
Bien, pensé que iban a saludar al ingreso.
Abierto el micrófono.
A ver.
No he dicho nada. Entonces,
Sí.
Gloria Uribe, yo la vi.
Ahí creo que exacto. Ahí queda. Vamos a mover un poco más. Que salga de...
Ahí.
Ahora sí. El saludo es al final, así que después se mueven las banderas y no hay problema.
No, pero ahí quedó perfecto. Porque
The
además queda en la
COVID-19
mitad,
pandemic
está
brought
totalmente-
unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools of virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Creo que ya estaremos bastante bien.
¿Cómo está?
Muy bien. Buenos días, ¿cómo te va?
I'm doing well, thank you. I was looking for the French to say how are you, but I couldn't come up with it.
Hay que grabar el presente.
Me and my kids have been here for over a year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Bien, salado, bien. Probando. Probando.
Nosotros estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
Ah, ok, no, sí. ¿Sí? ¿Listo? Bien.
Y ahí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA, y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que los dieron el terreno, los dieron todo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está teniendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children, and they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Buenos días a los intérpretes. Vamos a probar interpretación. Empezamos con la cabina de inglés. Ernesto, vamos a probar interpretación.
This is the English booth. Hello, this is the English booth. 1, 2, 3, testing the English booth. 1, 2, 3, good morning, this is Brian, testing the English booth. Okay, just to let you know, we're hearing a lot of echo from you, so hopefully that's not the main mic. A lot of echo coming our way. Thank you, bye-bye.
Están recibiendo eco. Ok, segunda cabina de inglés.
This is the second English booth. 1, 2, 1, 2. Thank you. Bye. Pues es el eco de siempre de la sala, mi amor. O sea, good luck. You know what I'm saying? O sea, en fin, we'll do what we can. Pero estoy de acuerdo, hay eco, pero bueno, what can you do? Bye. Yeah.
En judo, ok, listo. Vamos a francés, cabina de francés, probando francés. Karin. Perfecto, se escucha muy bien francés. Segunda cabina de francés, probando segunda cabina de francés. Perfecto, se escucha muy bien. Segunda cabina de francés. Ahora nos vamos a portugués. Probando portugués. Portugués. Bom dia, Marilda. Perfecto, Marilda. Segunda cabina de portugués. Segunda cabina de portugués. Rena. Perfecto, excelente. Muy obrigado. Y ahora nos vamos a español. Probando español. Susana. Excelente, Susana. Desde ahí. Gracias, Susana. Segunda cabina de español. Regina. Perfecto, Regina. Excelente. Gracias.
Gracias a todos y todas.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Center's program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Nosotros estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA, y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que los dieron el terreno, lo dieron todo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está teniendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children, and they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Este video fue producido con la ayuda financiera de la Unión Europea.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
Good morning, everyone. Please take your seats so we can get started in just a few moments.
Madam Chair, with your permission, we will proceed to confirm the quorum for this meeting while we await the formal arrival, the formal entrance of the distinguished President of Guatemala. Shall we proceed?
Yes, we may.
Good morning, everyone. We will now finalize the phase of testing audio and video. Connected, having done both tests this morning, we have the following delegations connected.
You've got your mic on. Your mic is on.
Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Suriname, Uruguay, and Venezuela. We have quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ASG. Good morning. I am pleased to declare this protocol meeting of the Permanent Council in session. It has been convened to receive the President of the Republic of Guatemala, His Excellency Dr. Alejandro Giammattei, and we consider its order of business approved. Approved. I invite the meeting participants to rise to welcome His Excellency Dr. Alejandro Giammattei. His Excellency Dr. Alejandro Giammattei, President of the Republic of Guatemala, Mr. Mario Bucaro, Distinguished Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Guatemala, distinguished members of the official delegation, Ambassador Rita Claveri de Scolia, Permanent Representative of Guatemala to the OAS, distinguished permanent and ad interim representatives of the member states, Mr. Luis Almagro, Secretary General, Ambassador Nestor Mendez, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished permanent observers, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States, it is my honor to greet you, Excellency Alejandro Giammattei, President of the Republic of Guatemala, and to offer you a most cordial welcome to this House of Americas, your home. Excellency, your presence again at the House of the Americas reiterates your country's confidence in the work of the OAS and its validity as the most important political forum in the hemisphere to address the central and common issues and interests of the region. Guatemala, as a founding member of the OAS, aligns in essence with the strategic pillars of the organization to advance the efforts of all American states to foster peaceful coexistence among states, the promotion of democracy, and the protection of human rights, as well as the defense of sovereignty, multidimensional security, and the promotion of integral development. Mr. President, you are coming to the OAS at a key moment when the member states must reflect carefully on the challenges that threaten global peace and security. As permanent representative of St. Lucia, I cannot fail to mention the excellent relations that unite us with our Guatemalan brothers and sisters. Although our countries are geographically apart, we do share a deep commitment to seeking common interests that complement domestic efforts to accelerate the development of initiatives with hemispheric impacts, including the fight against drug trafficking and the integrated response to COVID-19, climate change, and disaster mitigation. Mr. President, we thank you and appreciate your visit to the OAS. You are most welcome here. Thank you very much. Following the order of business of this protocol meeting, at this time, I am pleased to offer the floor to the Secretary General of the Organization of the American States, Mr. Luis Almagro. Mr. Secretary General, the floor is yours, sir.
President Alejandro Giammattei, the Republic of Guatemala has fulfilled a fundamental role within the inter-American system as a founding member of the organization and member of it. It's a very important bridge for this organization and other member states. Mr. President Giammattei, it's an honor to welcome you to the Permanent Council of the OAS on behalf of all the permanent representatives of the countries members of the OAS. Your presence at the Permanent Council ratifies your will of regional security, strengthening democracy, peaceful solution of conflicts throughout the hemisphere, the high ideals of Guatemala within the inter-American context. I agree with the motto of your government, together we transform. Cooperation and working together between the OAS and Guatemala is an expression of the desire of the Americas to work together. All of us who belong to the inter-American community, the principle of peaceful solution to conflicts and strengthening of democracy within the democratic charter and the charter of the OAS. This is a broad agenda of technical assistance, multidimensional and across sectors. This agenda is being carried out together. A number of projects, initiatives within human rights, democracy, integral development, multidimensional security, human rights, education, food security, migration, among others. Within this broad cross-sector agenda, we are building trust through the 2005 Framework Agreement for Stability and Peace in Guatemala, and as the maritime and land conflict is being overcome, we greet you for we commend you for the good relations between the two countries. Now, the mandates emanating from the member states in the Inter-American Democratic Charter, the General Secretariat has continued to support with the design, development, implementation of programs and projects that promote and strengthen the principles and practices of democracy in the region. The OAS office in your country is carrying through with this mandate to uphold peace and to serve as a mediator between both countries. The activity of our office reports to the government on the ground. Different actions of human development have been carried out, training and peace promotion. There are 400 people in the region who have benefited from these programs. Within the parameters established by the Democratic Charter, we push for strengthening democratic institutions in Guatemala by sending special OAS missions in 2020, followed up by the implementation of those recommendations. The purpose of that mission was to create an ongoing dialogue in which all of the social sectors and political sectors can together address those matters of concern to society, as well as to carry out conflict prevention and to work toward good democratic governance and peace. As far as the electoral observation missions, since the 70s, OAS has sent 11 missions to observe elections, and this also strengthened our joint work. In the last couple of years, OAS has concluded its work there. And the work there was so important during COVID. We are pleased to see the work carried out by Guatemala on matters of migration and protection, especially as addressed at the Summit of the Americas. Your commitment to international peace and your support, decided support to a country that has been attacked, Ukraine. Our commitment leads us to express the special interest that we have, that Guatemala has, to protect the rights of migrants. And to this effect, today, I would like to ask for a moment of silence for the victims, the migrants, who unfortunately died under the worst conditions, among whom there were Guatemalan citizens. Mr. President, you can count on us, lean on us, as well as the people of Guatemala. We express solidarity with you. We're certain that we can bring about a positive transformation in the region, working together. We're ushering in better days for there to be more rights for more citizens. We have a lot of work to do together to strengthen the unfinished business of the Americas, Central America especially, that is most vulnerable to climate change, where additional resources are necessary to mitigate the effects of climate change. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
It is a great honor for me to offer the floor to His Excellency, Dr. Alejandro Giammattei, President of the Republic of Guatemala. Mr. President, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Ambassador Elisa Clark, Distinguished Representative of St. Lucia, Distinguished Secretary General of the OAS, Luis Almagro, Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, permanent representatives of the member states of the Organization of American States, honorable delegations of permanent observers, ladies and gentlemen, before I launch into my statement, I would like to share a video with you that the Congress of the Republic of Guatemala sends the OAS.
La Comisión Interamericana de Derechos Humanos, CIDH, publicó en su informe anual del año 2021 algunas consideraciones que no compartimos y por las cuales manifestamos nuestro desacuerdo. Entre ellas, el incumplimiento sistemático del Estado de Guatemala con su obligación de combatir la impunidad, atribuible a una falta de voluntad manifiesta, incurriendo en numerosas intromisiones en procesos democráticos internos en curso, violando de este modo su mandato y los principios de derecho internacional, sobre los cuales la Organización de Estados Americanos, OEA, y sus órganos fueron creados. Además, en el numeral 223 de ese mismo informe, deplora la normativa penal que protege la vida desde la concepción y tipifica el crimen del aborto, y en claro abuso de su mandato, pretende forzar a adoptar medidas legislativas, políticas públicas, entre otras acciones, con el fin de promover el acceso irrestricto a prácticas abortivas. En el numeral 240, la Comisión expresa su alarma ante el trámite de iniciativas legales para la protección y promoción de la familia. De tal modo, intenta nuevamente interferir en los procesos democráticos en curso respecto a la iniciativa de ley 5272, denominada Proyecto de Ley para la Protección de la Vida y la Familia, normativa que los diputados guatemaltecos, después de escuchar las opiniones de diferentes sectores del país, decidieron archivar y no enviar para su ratificación. Del mismo modo, en el numeral 241, la CIDH pretende interferir en el debate legislativo sobre la iniciativa de ley 5940, denominado Proyecto de Ley para garantizar la protección integral de la niñez y la adolescencia contra los trastornos de identidad de género, que según su exposición de motivos, busca proteger de mutilaciones, hormonizaciones irreversibles a menores de edad en Guatemala. Por tal razón, y con fundamento en las leyes que rigen el quehacer legislativo,
and the deputies elected to the Congress of Guatemala for the 9th legislature, which is the legitimate representative of the country, and in whom power has been granted by universal suffrage, democratic suffrage, beg to put before the OAS the limits of the OAS's power. You are not a sovereign power. The Inter-American authorities on human rights, therefore, must bow to the necessary corrective measures that states can take within their democratic context. There is no mandate internationally that authorizes the IACHR to interfere in domestic issues and the promulgation and upholding of national law. The Charter of the OAS establishes that the international order and respected international is rooted in the sovereignty and independence of the states and the full respect of treaty law. It is in that regard that it's fair to say there is no single treaty that countries have ratified in which, for instance, marriage of people of the same sex or decriminalization or legalization of abortion are accepted. And furthermore, it is also true that non-discrimination is not rooted in any of these treaties. Human rights treaties, to the contrary, and going back to the Charter of the American States, when it speaks of human rights, speaks of the protection of life from the moment of conception, protection of the family as an element of natural order in society, and the rights of parents to ensure, if they so choose, moral and religious precepts according to their respective beliefs. So the bodies that interpret treaties have also been very clear as to their interpretation. Let us look to the Vienna Convention on Treaties, which establishes that a treaty must be interpreted in good faith and following common and understood sense, and in the context of the treaty itself and bearing in mind its precepts and its outcome. Nothing in the treaties of laws or the law of treaties should be understood to the contrary. And as to holdings, consultative opinions, or other opinions, we would remind the IACHR that the American Convention on Human Rights establishes that states parties to that convention commit to upholding the decision of the court any time that they are party to that decision. And where there is a doctrinal issue before the Commission or the Inter-American Court, those countries that are not part of the controversy cannot be bound by any such decision as agreed among the parties. Given all the foregoing, and most respectfully, the different deputies in the Guatemalan Congress, standing as one to uphold institutionality, appeal to the Commission to stop any illegitimate act or intervention that falls outside the four corners of its own mandate and outside any rules previously agreed by the states. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has no authority to take an activist stand under the guise of protection of human rights and institutionality. Where there are matters of abuse and stepping outside those confines, the Commission itself puts its own self at risk, and the precepts on which the OAS system is based at risk. Let us recall that the respect for human rights must be grounded, first and last, in respect of the law. That goes to treaties, which will be the basis of peace and justice in any country. And for that reason, and with great respect, all of the political parties of the Guatemalan Congress, standing as one, appeal to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to cease and desist any action that falls outside the parameters of its mandate. Not to do so would be a violation of the rules previously agreed by the member states, and in that case would itself become a threat to democracy. The undersigned are all of the delegates to the Congress of Guatemala. Thank you very much. As head of state, I speak also for the three branches of government, and as head of state, it is indeed an honor to address you, ladies and gentlemen, and to be present at this protocolary session, at which all of our brother and sister republics are here, members of this august body, bringing greetings and warm wishes from the people of Guatemala and its government, standing as one to defend human rights and fundamental freedoms of all of our citizens. And I very much thank Ambassador Elizabeth Darius Clark, permanent representative of St. Lucia, for having called this protocolary meeting, as I also greet the head of this organization, Mr. Luis Almagro, to give us an opportunity to speak of this era in the post-pandemic era. When we signed our adherence to the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights, we knew what we were committing to, and we continue to uphold those principles, very much convinced that a solid democracy is something we build day by day, and something that the sovereign people hold in their own hands for peace, for prosperity, and for the benefit of each of the Guatemalan citizens. Thus, I am very pleased to state before this Permanent Council that the Organization of American States, which is the oldest regional assembly of the world and the most relevant hemispheric organization per its constitution, was created as a means of peace and justice, solidarity amongst the states, and an increase in their collaboration, a defense of their territorial integrity, in some, their own independence. That is why I have full confidence that this organization will follow that course, the very reason for which it was created, and will follow the parameters that we, the member states, have shaped over the years as we have faced our own political challenges, social and political, as we all know. Madam President, in this august body and hall, Guatemala stands before you as a sovereign and democratic state, reiterating its commitment to the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights, which, of course, was created by the states themselves. That is why Guatemala holds the preeminence of states where human rights are involved, where a separation of powers is involved, within a context of legality as an absolute minimum necessary for peace and democracy to subsist. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the ISCHR, has made public, before its position was set before the Permanent Council of the OAS, a certain number of principles which stand, therefore, absolutely contrary to the way these matters have been handled thus far. The state of Guatemala immediately reacted, most energetically, and regretted the decision of the Commission to include Guatemala under Article 4D with regard to human rights and combating of corruption. We firmly stand against that position of the ISCHR and dispute the basis on which Article 59C states with regard to Article 4. The matter does not fit the profile of discrimination, and it does fit that of an abuse of power. There is no systematic infraction of legality, much less acts of insubordination by states' powers vis-à-vis the civil power that I had, according to the law. Therefore, I say here loud and clear, our system of justice is totally independent per our Constitution and the basic canons of international law. The actions the goals that the state of Guatemala has worked toward throughout its state show the diligent work of all of our employees, civil servants, each of whom upholds, as he and she sees best, the constitutional order in our country. And so to state otherwise is to misread the facts. So too we are guided by those principles in our use of the common fund, where there is reimbursement to be made because of any infraction against people's civil rights. And let me say that there are a number of methodological errors in the IACHR text, and certainly shows bias and prejudice vis-a-vis Guatemala. Let me tell you why. First, the report questions judicial decisions. Now, the IACHR is not a fourth instance within the judicial institutions of my country, nor is the IACHR any reviser or higher authority to emit its judgment as to what we do and to question resolutions that have been taken lawfully in our country, particularly when all recourses have not been exhausted in the country and where a report on the merits has not been brought forward, again shows arbitrariness and bias and lack of methodology of the grossest type. Let me also say that the attack of a number of judges who presumably violated due process and human rights vis-a-vis numbers of persons, and if in certain cases people died when they were held in a provisional detention, does not tally with any particular judicial procedural flaw. We know that such things have happened, but to question our investigation of these facts undermines our own institutionality and certainly runs counter to the subsidiarity of the IACHR, which is not above us, not any one of us, and shows yet again flagrant bias and lack of objectivity. Further, in Chapter 4D, there is a questioning of whether Guatemala actually signed the Geneva Convention, recognizing, such as the Inter-American Convention does, the sanctity of life from conception on. How can the IACHR question a sovereign act of foreign affairs which comports with Article 4 of the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights? And yet another methodological flagrant flaw is the activist agenda, which is pro-abortion, which is certainly beyond the four corners of the Commission's mandate. The mandate has no activist role to play here. Every country of this hemisphere has the right to make its own judicial decisions, as we have recently seen in the very country where I find myself. So I'm talking here of going beyond the limits of its own confines, certainly as regards Guatemala and what we have done to uphold the democratic and the human rights freedom of our people. This shows, quite frankly, a haughtiness on the part of the Commission vis-a-vis our democracy. Most unfortunate, therefore, is the decision of the IACHR to put Guatemala in Chapter 4B, because Guatemala, through the darkest times, ladies and gentlemen, has done all it could to give the Commission the information it sought, and sought always to improve the situation. It grieves me to say this, but the IACHR, frankly, is a threat to the legitimacy of human rights itself in the continent. Let me say that the notion that the IACHR has the obligation to ensure that states change their domestic normative decisions to abide by the decisions of the IACHR, which instruments may not have been expressly approved aforehand, is a nonsense. It is democratic processes that have to guide this, as the adoption of the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights itself was adopted back in the day. Secondly, when Article 41B of its regulation establishes the authority of the IACHR to issue recommendations, let me say that again, recommendations to the states vis-a-vis human rights, it is not given the right to interfere in its democratic principles and its judicial process. The role of the IACHR is not to emit binding opinions. It is to stay within the corners of the legal framework of each of the states. And so, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates all, let me simply say that we hope very much together that we can work to reform the present commission, because the illegality that is being used against Guatemala today, you may be sure, may have you in its sights tomorrow. Any one of us. And so let me invite the IACHR certainly to recognize and to respect the autonomy of each state with regard to the protection and promotion of human rights, and to adjust its statements and its action to the framework of each country's laws, without bias, without partiality, and without unfounded attacks on any country such as my own, which is certainly redounding to a great prejudice to the rapport we have had thus far with the Commission. And I certainly hope that my being as frank and as candid as I recognize I am being will be well received, dear friends, and well understood. My aim, first and last, is to contribute to strengthen the Inter-American system. We all built it. We want it to work for us, not against us. There has to be due process and a respect for the law. People have a right to prove themselves innocent. There's a judicious process that we each have, and that must be respected. And so, Madam Chair, when a country receives a note from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, in which one is boldly informed that the country is going to be put on Chapter 4B unless an in loco visit is arranged, that smacks of extortion. What is that? If you don't invite me, you'll regret it, and you'll be punished. We read that as a threat and as a form of extortion. And guess what? We're not accepting either. And we are now in a chapter and under a heading where we should never have been. Most regrettable. So look out. It's Guatemala today. You may be next. Now, let me very quickly, Madam Chair, turn to a very urgent issue that we all face, and I'm talking about climate change and natural disasters, which is a source of ongoing destruction and reconstruction, costing so very much that those of us most gravely affected by this phenomenon are always behind. Guatemala, as you may know, is one of the 10 countries that has been internationally known to be of the greatest danger in the world. And certainly the Caribbean, as you know, is a region that is most gravely affected by climate change. One reason for it is the high vulnerability that Guatemala undergoes at this time of year. Over the last 3 weeks, 2 major hurricanes have affected 180,000 Guatemalans, destroying homes, bridges, highways, crops, and alas, lives. Not even all of them found yet. And we know that things could get worse because the second semester of the year, from a climate standpoint, doesn't bode better. Just last week, security forces joined everything they could to bring assistance to the Guatemalan citizens that were gravely affected by those hurricanes, by the torrential rains that destroyed their homes, their crops, and their lives. Let us all, dear friends, work under the banner of common but differentiated responsibility so that we can recognize the situation of our brother and sister republics and understand that financing in an acceptable form may be available where cooperation monies are made available vis-a-vis climate change, where the implementation and adoption of strategies may really prove availing. We can only hope that the OAS will really tackle this issue with all the energy that it can muster. We are going to have, in this very room of the Americas, a meeting on that subject. And I hope that this initiative, which in my country has been warmly welcomed, may be a platform for interactive dialogue among all of the countries and partners so that we can set forth better lines of cooperation and deepen them so that we can come up with a comprehensive and effective response to this terrible scourge of climate change, which is ongoing for us. Madam Chair, we do understand how complex climate change is. We get how difficult the food and housing insecurity that it challenges is, and how hard it is for all of us to face this. We know that poverty, and indeed extreme poverty, remain the main challenge. My government is doing everything it can to put that at the very heart of our national agenda. We have strategies and policies that are unceasingly seeking to improve, helping children under 5, preschool kids, the indigenous and autochthonous populations in the margins of society. We look to find a better way to bring the people together to improve the nutrition of the Guatemalan family across the board. Now, Madam Chair, the various issues I have raised here, which are very important, each one, cannot be taken singly. When a family is dirt poor and just hasn't a way to find food, to get by, to move onwards, what do? They leave. They hope for a better future elsewhere. And that is the root, as we know, of migration. Not only of our own Guatemalan citizens, but being as we are, a necessary route of transit for everybody heading north. We must recognize the importance of tackling the root causes of migration. This isn't any one country's problem. It is our joint and several problem. We must understand how important it is to build walls of understanding, not walls that will presume to contain immigration. We want immigration to be certainly an option, and for it to be orderly and safe, we can only hope. That is why we are behind all of those policies that will boost economic production, employment, more reasons to stay home, Mexico, El Salvador, and Honduras are working jointly and severally on the very thing. Now, Madam Chair, let me just say, too, the sanctity of life is a priority to us. Our Constitution states this. Every person has a right to be respected, so states our Constitution from conception on. And we signed the Geneva Understanding on the Strengthening of Women and the Family, and we are proud to be called the capital of pro-life campaigns in the Americas. We call out on each of you and all of your countries, certainly to be respectful, as we are, of the legal frameworks of each country, and we ask for the same in return. Respect our own legal understanding and legal framework. It is also essential to improve the lives of women, girls, and children. As Madam Chair, we are also about to hold an election with universal secret ballots as an expression of the sovereignty of the Guatemalan citizens and the pluri-political mosaic that we represent. We're working very hard to strengthen electoral participation also amongst our co-citizens that are abroad. But respect for integrity and the free determination of states and strengthening of our institutions are the bedrock of our government. We must always remember that. We cannot allow onslaughts from outside that come from different tendencies and different ideas that we do not hold, and to allow them to erode our own principles. We have worked tirelessly for development in my beautiful country, and Madam Chair, we have certainly gone very far fighting drug trafficking, security, both maritime, aerial, and ground. We have increased our drug seizures and spot drug flights that are ever higher in our country.
We have increased our seizures of cocaine, marijuana, 2 million crops or plants of marijuana, and 9 million poppy plants have been seized. We broadened the number of people who have been extradited in our fight against drug trafficking since 2020 until now. 82 people were extradited for drug trafficking, 21 for other crimes. That's a historic level in our country. We reiterate the importance that member states of this organization ratified the San Jose Treaty, the agreement that promotes the measures of cooperation on maritime security, as well as facilitating the interdiction of drugs and precursors, and to respond to natural disasters without undermining the sovereignty of countries. We commend the efforts that are still being carried out to respond to this problem, working with CICAD, exchanging experiences on leadership and other activities. I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Secretary General of the OAS for the implementation of the comprehensive program to strengthen multidimensional security in Guatemala, in which different institutions of the international security system and other entities of state have had access to cooperation and technical assistance, as well as training. Guatemala made available to CICAD a considerable contribution as a national matching fund to carry out operational intelligence and to carry out intelligence gathering for drug trafficking, so that we can halt the sale or imports of precursors, we underscore the importance of continuing to strengthen the hemisphere-wide mechanisms on cyber security, cyber defense, such as the CIR in the Americas, to continue with monitoring and the exchange of information across our institutions. Guatemala takes part from two different vantage points in this mechanism, from the Incident Response Center and also the Battalion of Cyber Defense. We also have the National Committee of Cyber Security, which advises the National Council on Security. Madam Chair, as regards the fight against corruption, governance, and security, we continue to work in the implementation of recommendations issued by the follow-up mechanism for the implementation of the Inter-American Convention Against Corruption, MESASIC, in order to strengthen governance, especially in prevention of the fight against corruption. After the special mission of the OAS visited us in November of 2020, Guatemala has followed up on those recommendations contained in the report issued from the rolling out of the plan to strengthen democracy and fight against corruption in Guatemala, headed up by my office. Also, open e-government is something that we have pushed forward to ensure greater transparency and development, ensuring efficiency among our public institutions, applying good practices, access to public information, accountability, transparency, and probity in civil servants' performance. Esteemed representatives, rest assured that Guatemala is not stopping. It's moving forward with an agenda toward recovery, rebuilding, security, and development. We are the most resilient of the economies of the Americas and the largest of Central America, according to macroeconomic indicators, which are favorable, confirmed by the three main risk assessment agencies. And we have been deemed a safe place for investment, and we continue to push forward with development processes in the region, and we are proud to promote South-South cooperation and to share our catalog of offers, offering a host of best practices that have proven to be successful toward sustainable development. We believe in cooperation and development based on multilateralism and symmetric cooperation for new schemes of development, an offer that we make available to countries of the region based on horizontal approach, consensus, and equity. Madam Chair, we reassert the effort that we are carrying out together with Antigua Barbuda and Barbuda to promote the extraordinary session of the Permanent Council of the OAS, in which we sponsored the resolution for the suspension of the status of Russia as a permanent observer at the OAS until the Russian government halts its hostilities, withdraws all of its troops and military equipment from the Ukraine within its own internationally recognized borders, and to take up once again dialogue and cease its acts of aggression against Ukraine. And we are firm against this illegal invasion of a sovereign country. That's why I reiterate the interest that Guatemala has, the avocation of a country of peace that respects the human rights and constitutional principles and the defense of sovereignty. Guatemala reasserts its commitment to continue working with the entire region to achieve economic prosperity, security, human rights for all of our peoples. The venue of dialogue that the Organization of American States offers is needed more than ever, with the spirit of solidarity that enables us to move forward and consolidate a new way of relaunching the region. I conclude by thanking everyone for your attention, that may God bless the hemisphere, and may God bless Guatemala.
Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this protocol meeting. Thank you all for attending. I would like to ask all persons respecting social distancing and one by one, starting with the delegation closest to the exit, to rise from their seats to greet His Excellency, the President of Guatemala. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay.